Hello again, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf of Outspoken and Daily Clout, and this is our evening reading of the 1560 Geneva Bible. We decided to do it in the evening so more people could join us, and that's the founders of our nation's Bible. It's the Puritans' Bible, Shakespeare's Bible. It preceded the King James Bible, and it was translated very accurately from the Hebrew at risk of the translators' lives, because they were Protestants, and they had been chased out of England by the church, basically, and no disrespect to Roman Catholicism, no disrespect to Protestantism. They were on a mission to create a translation of the Bible that any plowboy could read and understand, as they put it. And they accomplished that. And so this was this revolutionary, very, very, very accurate Bible that some of the most influential minds ever to have walked the earth took literally as God's word. And it says so much about the founding of our nation. And you've seen in the course of these readings how later mistranslations, very, very different translations in the Revised Standard Version, which is the modern version we're reading, just as a random example, have been systematically, for reasons I don't understand, but seem very, negative and nefarious, mistranslating the Hebrew to make God seem more irrational, more distant than he is in the original, not appearing to people when he did appear to people, wrathful, arbitrary, and also falsely inflating the role of organized religion, whereas in the original, God's right there for you, priest or no priest, church or no church, temple or no temple. So I think that's very, very, very interesting, as you know. And we're just going to pick up now with Numbers 24. We've been going through Numbers, and this is like the third episode in this long story of Balaam and Balaak. And just before I get into it, I do feel like I should acknowledge something huge going on in the world. Every day, it seems like the craziness and the imaginary claims about Jews and Judaism get more intense and more public. And things that people, had stopped saying publicly, even if they thought them, anti-Semitic things, are being trotted out into the public arena. And for some reason, arguments, especially on the conservative side of the aisle, about Jews, about the role of Israel, and often conflating the two, right, have become, violent. And I mean, not physically violent yet, thank God, though there's been plenty of physical violence against Jews in the last week or two, whipped up, no doubt, by this rhetoric. But it seems clearly to me a foreign influence trying to split Jews and Christians, and to create mythologies that render Israel unnecessary to Christians, and theologically unnecessary. And I'll just address one. I had the real misfortune of having to read the transcript of Tucker Carlson's, whom I used to really like, right? Like, we were texting friends, we were like colleagues. I would send him my essays. He was I thought, a very important person, very brave. But he did an interview with someone named Carrie Prejean Baller, I believe, a former beauty queen, now a California mom, who served on the President's Religious Liberty Council and kind of went to public because she felt like her kind of pro-Palestinian or anti-Zionist views were censored by the Jews or the Jew sympathizers or the Israel sympathizers. And she kind of went public with it and became, I guess, in some ways, to some people, a heroine, and to other people, an example of very, very, very ill-informed attacks on Jews merged with attacks on Israeli foreign policy, which is totally fair game, and if you want to attack Jews in the First Amendment, that's fair game verbally too. But her interview revealed so much misunderstanding, I hate that word, misinformation. She is misinformed. And Tucker Carlson was whipping up this misinforming of his audience. So there are almost too many lies and myths to address, especially in a preamble. And this is supposed to be a preamble. But, one of the things I want to call attention to is Tucker Carlson kind of made fun of, which is kind of, I'm sorry, but I see my friends and former friends making fun of God's word, and it's like, we've seen in this reading, that is a dangerous thing to do. I'm not saying it's dangerous from any human being. I'm not making a threat, God forbid. I'm just saying we've read story after story after story in the Hebrew Bible in which people who, openly mocked or derided God's wishes, God's instruction, terrible things happened to them. And this is something that's kind of been written out of modern Christianity and modern Judaism, for that matter. We have this kind of, kumbaya, God, version of God. But, no, like, justice is swift in the Old Testament, in God's universe. And people get swallowed up by the earth when they refuse to organize themselves the way God asked them to, just a few chapters back. Or, a flame leaps out. Remember the strange fire that Aaron's sons brought to the tent of meeting? A strange fire leaps out and devours them, even like the poor Egyptians being swallowed up by the Red Sea, the Egyptian military or the Egyptian firstborn. Like, bad things happen when you mock God. that used to feel like kind of a medieval thing to say, like, oh, well, Naomi, you went to Yale and you're a Rhodes Scholar. Surely that, that's just a medieval kind of superstition. Apparently not, and the rabbi, something weird is going on right now in the world, right? My rabbi did point out, and I didn't want to believe it, but it's kind of true. Every single enemy of the people of Israel, they don't exist anymore. They hurt us for a while. They could hurt us for a while. They could drag us into exile, but now they're gone. The Babylonians are gone. The Medians are gone. The Amalekites are gone. The German Nazis, died of suicide in the middle of the reclaiming of Berlin by their own hands. They killed themselves, on and on and on. And everyone's hated us, or lots of people have hated us for 2,000 years, more, 3,500 years. And, it all is exactly as God promised, over and over and over. And it's not like he is especially pleased with us most of the time. He's really, really, really annoyed with us because we don't do what he wants him to do. But we have a job, and over and over, in these texts, he's explained, you have a job, you guys have a job. And I was talking to Brian about this, and I said, Brian, why doesn't it, and it's not about being better than anyone else, but our job is to help transmit God's law to the world. And then through, in my view, Yeshua, but, through Christianity, through other people inspired by the Old Testament, made into the New Testament, or just people coming to the Old Testament, this seed of God's law has in fact gone all over the world. That's our job, right? To bring that light to the world. And that's your job, right? It's a collective job, but we have different we work in different offices. And I was saying to Brian, why doesn't it bother you, this notion that, God asked the Jews to do something kind of unique? Because he's Catholic. And he said, it doesn't bother me the way, not being in Delta Force didn't bother me. I'm not in that unit. Like everyone has their mission, everyone has their role to play. We're all in God's army, if you like, in different religions. That's what I believe. And we all have different roles to play. But this was clearly, if you believe in the Tanakh, which is part of the Christian religion, I just keep saying that because there's this propaganda effort to erase it, then we have to face the fact that over and over and over in this text, God is saying, this is your job. Stop avoiding the fact that this is your job, this tribe of people. So this is his plan for whatever reason. We don't know why, but I am scared, looking at someone like Tucker Carlson mock the word of God. Like, you should listen to this interview. He literally is like, ha, 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 they say, I'll bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, as if we said it. We didn't say it. If you believe in the Old Testament, God said it. We didn't make that up. We had a horrible time getting to the land of Israel, and then we were exiled from it. Then our temple was destroyed. We don't think, we didn't come up with that. If you believe that this is the word of God, that's what God said. So I would just say, I have to love everyone, even though I'm really furious at Tucker Carlson and all the, insane anti-Semites right now. But just always holding out hope for people. I would say, be careful. It's not smart to mock the word of God. Like, it just isn't. And that's not coming from me. It's coming from God. This text shows you just don't, you can argue, we're a tradition that argues with God all day long, but it's a very bad idea to mock the word of God, in my humble opinion, and based on this text. So in Genesis, the original, I'll bless those who bless you, was quoted. And that's the reference I think Tucker Carlson was making. But here again in chapter 24, there's another famous blessing for the children of Israel. And again, as I always want to stress, the blessing for the children of Israel goes to you. It's so they can do their thing, so that it can all get leavened out into the world like yeast in dough. And which happened, incredibly enough, this little sect through Jesus did alter the course of, all of the West, and Christians around the world. So it is amazing. The other creepy thing, thank you, Rose Kelleher. Great to see you. And you are 1,000% correct. God will not be mocked. And that too is a quote, which I bet Rose Kelleher can find and post. God is not mocked. That's exactly right. So the other thing is Ms. Pregine Bolin said, it's a very garbled theology, right? But I'm hearing it a lot, that basically Jews in Israel don't matter anymore because there's something called replacement theology, which is that Christians are the new Jews, or Christians are the new children of Israel. And I believe that a lot of churches are being told this now, or a lot of Christians are being told this. Well, it's a gigantic departure from 2,000 years of Christianity. I would say almost a heretical departure. And we can talk more about it, but, and then this concludes with her saying over and over again, I don't have to believe that the 1948 founding of the modern state of Israel fulfills biblical prophecy. I shouldn't have to believe that. I'm a Catholic. She conflates that, which we don't say anyone has to believe, right? She conflates that with Jews saying to Christians, you have to believe this. And then Tucker Carlson jumps on and says, when was there a Council of Nicaea that said that Christians have to believe that, Judaism, that founding the state of Israel in 1948 is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And then they both twist that into this Jews forcing Christians to believe that. And Tucker Carlson attacks Christian Zionism, which is the friendship that Christians and Jews have had in America for as long, since before America was founded. So I'm not telling anyone to believe, but for sure, something very nefarious about Tucker Carlson's interview with this woman is that he's grossly, and she's misunderstanding or misrepresenting, but he's grossly misrepresenting Jews' intentions toward Christians. And by the way, I just have to say this, my dear friend Emerald Robinson, who said this past week that Jews inviting Christians to Shabbat services is a CIA plot to lure Christians away from Christian worship. I don't even know where to begin, but no, A, and B, we're not supposed to proselytize. Like, Christians want, understandably, Paul told them, spread the good word, be a disciple, be a proselytizer, spread the gospel. That's their mission. Muslims, God knows, are supposed to take over nations and establish caliphates and rule the world for Allah. Judaism doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. We don't want Christians to become Jews. We don't care. It's literally like Brian said, that's not my unit. We're not supposed to try to get people to convert to Judaism. And it's quite difficult to convert to Judaism. You can't just say, like in Christianity, I accept Jesus Christ as my personal savior, bingo, you're a Christian. Or Islam, whatever it is you do in Islam, it's immediate, right? We don't do that. You have to study for at least a year. You have to really go through quite a lot. There are high hurdles set, partly because it's difficult. It's a difficult responsibility, and we don't want to dump it on people unless they really, really want it. But you guys really have to understand, and I wish Tucker Carlson were listening to this, or Emerald Robinson for that matter, or all of these eruptors of anti-Semitism. We don't want to take Christians away from their worship. God bless Christians in their worship. God bless Muslims in their worship. It's not our job. That's not our mission. God didn't tell us, go get the Christians, right? No. So that's a complete psycho fantasy. God didn't say force them to believe something they don't believe, impose this biblical, worldview on them that isn't part of their faith. That is a real, blasphemous distortion, really disgusting distortion, intentional distortion of what Jews are and what Judaism is. It isn't asking anyone who's not Jewish to do anything. It does ask Jews to, live up to their responsibilities, although not very hard, as you can tell from the fact that most Jews are secular. But it doesn't do that. So that was a shameful lie, or a very sad, regrettable misunderstanding, either a shameful lie or a terrible misunderstanding by Tucker Carlson, or a shameful lie or a terrible misunderstanding by his guest, Carrie Prejean. I can't pronounce the last name. Let's just say Carrie Prejean. I'm being irresponsible. Let me get her name right. And maybe someone would put it in the Carrie. Okay, so that's two horrible. Carrie Prejean Baller. Here she is. An American model, former Miss California USA, 2009, stripped of her title when she said that she believes in marriage between one man and one woman. Very, very, very firm in her beliefs. I have to credit her for all of that, but she's grossly misinformed about Judaism. And so is Tucker Carlson. And then the last thing I want to mention is, and it's, by the way, it's very dangerous, you guys, if Christians in America start to buy the lie, which I'm persuaded there's Qatar money or even Iranian money behind these new mythologies, right? Because this is not organic American Christian theology that, the Old Testament doesn't matter. Talk to the Puritans about that. Literally in Puritan America, every town was named for a town in the Old Testament. Salem, Massachusetts, where we spend a lot of our time, is Jerusalem, right? Bethesda, these are all Old Testament. Well, actually that's a New Testament place name, but, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, right? I mean, like we could go on and on and on. It's so ignorant. It's so ignorant. Abraham, Sarah, these are all Puritan names, right? They read the Old Testament in church. They studied the Old Testament. When you read about people writing the marriages of old American families in the family Bible, it wasn't just the New Testament. It was the Old Testament and the New Testament. It was the Torah, 5 books of Moses, and the prophets and the Psalms and the New Testament. Like, please, when did we become so ignorant? And Jesus was very clear over and over and over again that the Old Testament was the root and the New Testament is the branch. Very clear. And that what he was doing clearly, in my view, was taking the essential lessons of the Old Testament, which Tucker Carlson talks about as if the New Testament invented things like turn the other cheek. We're going to see it in the Old Testament. Like, these are things that the Jews of Jesus's time knew about in temple because they studied the Torah, right? It's dense and it's, hard to lift out in a simple lesson. But what Jesus did very brilliantly is he distilled the moral essence of the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, and made it accessible to, a new generation, new people, non-Jews, and made it crystal clear, and he would say the Hebrew Bible says, don't attack someone who attacks you. I say further, if he takes your cloak, if he takes your shirt, give him your cloak. I'm paraphrasing. He took it one step further, but he was building on what he and all the disciples knew was God's law, and his distillation, the Sermon on the Mount, as you'll see, is a distillation of the moral teaching in the Hebrew Bible. So and he said, I quote this over and over in Matthew, not a jot or tittle of the law will pass away until the world passes away. So he wasn't saying, ditch the Old Testament. Now, Paul had a lot to say on the subject, but Paul, I believe, is a complicated guy and was introducing a Hellenistic Roman view of how to approach Jesus's teaching. But Jesus didn't have that view. Jesus wasn't a Hellenized Jew. He was a Jewish Jew from a working class background, surrounded by Jews, talking about Jewish festivals, going to the temple, making sacrifices, how to do it better, how to pray, Jewish rituals. The Last Supper was a Jewish Seder. Come on, do I have to tell this to you guys? You know this, you should know it. And he never said, none of that matters anymore. He didn't. He just didn't. He said, what are your priorities? That it's more important to save a life on Shabbat than to stick to the letter of the law. He said it's more important to love everyone than to be an absolute stickler for, every detail of how the law should be followed optimally. He asked people to get back to the essence, the moral essence of what the laws were for. It's a very, it's something that is so contiguous with the Old Testament that he never spoke about it as being not contiguous with the Old Testament. He was definitely renewing the message. But to tell Christians that they don't need the Old Testament anymore, they don't need their own Jewish heritage, their ancient, they don't need the 10 Commandments, they don't need the story of Exodus, they don't need the story of creation. It's really evil. And it, what does it turn Christianity into? Like Disneyland? I mean, really, there's no grounding if you cut the tree and leave only the branches, in my opinion. And I'm not, I love Jesus Christ, but I'm not Christian. So I hope you all understand what I've been saying, my preamble. I'm worried, I'm not just worried about Jews. We'll be fine. We always are one way or another. I'm really worried about American Christianity because people are encouraging Christians to believe that they're cousins, right? They're co-religionists almost, right? Jews and Christians are cognate religions. are their enemies, and that's really just not true. And they're telling them Israel doesn't matter. I mean, Iran just struck the Church of the Holy Sepulchre where Jesus Christ was laid to rest. Like Iran did that. Israel's trying to protect those holy sites. Israel tries to protect all the Christian and Muslim sacred sites in Israel. I'm not talking about the West Bank, which is, not fully not protectable by Israel, but in Israel, Christian sacred sites, Muslim sacred sites, Kurdish sacred sites, Druze sacred sites, they're protected by the Israeli government. And the land where Jesus walked doesn't matter to Christians, to American Christians. That is such an evil, and I think probably Qatar funded, probably Iranian funded, some kind of Muslim funding, Islamist funding, message to divide American Christians. I also am interested that I think that it really benefits Democrats to have us be fighting among ourselves in this way, and to have the split between MAGA Christians and what would have been MAGA Jews if this could all have been averted, or discussed more civilly, and with less nefarious intent. I think it's interesting that one of the people Tucker Carlson has interviewed recently has connections to the Democratic Party, to a key operative in the Democratic Party. I need to do a little more research before I state that for the record, but so it's not confirmed. I heard it from one source. So I'll look into that. But, just thinking as a political consultant, this would really, really, really help Democrats. And you notice they've been really quiet. Like, don't get in your enemy's way when they're destroying themselves. They've been really quiet. They're letting conservatives commit suicide, and alienate. As a political consultant, all this ignorant hatred is very unattractive to suburban moderates. That's all. I mean, I love MAGA, but there are a lot of educated people from every walk of life in this country who don't like, I don't know what to call it, like redneck hatred, of other people, especially their co-religionists. And the last thing I will say is, at a time when the Islamist threat is ramping up so dramatically, how convenient for Islamist communist interests, like the ones who took over the city I'm sitting in right now, to have Jews and Christians at each other's throats instead of noticing and mobilizing together against the Islamist communist threat. So that was my rant before we even begin. Thank you for listening. And now let's get into the text. I mean, honestly, I feel like with all these lies, all I can do is read day by day what God really said and what the children of Israel really believed. So here we go. Join with me. You can go ahead to archive.org, the Geneva Bible 1560, if you don't have your own book. And let's just go ahead and read. And remember, the subheadlines are not in the original text. Balaam prophesies of the great prosperity that should come unto Israel, also of the coming of Christ, the destruction of the Amalekites and of the Kenites. And now the text begins, the actual text. When Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, then he went not, as certain times before, to set divinations, but set his face toward the wilderness. And Balaam lifted up his eyes and looked upon Israel, which dwelt according to their tribes, and the Spirit of God came upon him. And he uttered his parable and said, Balaam, the son of Beor, has said, and the man whose eyes were shut up has said, he has said, which heard the words of God and saw the vision of the Almighty, and falling in a trance had his eyes opened. And the note says, though he lay as in a sleep, yet the eyes of his mind were open. Oh, these notes are so fabulous. How goodly are thy tents, Jacob, and thine habitations, O Israel. As the valleys are they stretched forth, as gardens by the riverside, as the aloe trees which the Lord has planted, as the cedars beside the waters. How beautiful. The water drops out of his bucket, and his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted. And the note says, his prosperity and posterity shall be very great. His wealth and his descendants shall be very great of number. And it says, which name was common to the king of Amalek. Agag is the king of the Amalekites. And his kingdom shall be exalted. God brought him out of Egypt. This is still Balaam speaking. His strength shall be as an unicorn. He shall eat the nations, his enemies, and bruise their bones and shoot them through with his arrows. He couches and lies down as a young lion and as a lion. Who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blesses you, and cursed is he that curses you. Then Balaak was very angry with Balaam, and smote his hands together, struck them together. So Balaak said unto Balaam, I sent for you to curse mine enemies, and behold, you have blessed them now 3 times. Therefore now flee unto thy place, get out of here, go home, go back to your place. I thought surely to promote you unto honor, but lo, the Lord has kept you back from honor. And the note says, thus the wicked burden God when they cannot compass their wicked enterprise. Interesting. When they can't manage to achieve their wicked enterprise. Then Balaam answered Balaak, told I not also your messengers which you sent unto me, saying, if Balaak would give me his house full of silver and gold, I cannot pass the commandment of the Lord. I can't change or alter the commandment of the Lord to do either good or bad of mine own mind. What the Lord shall command, that same will I speak. So Balaam is saying correctly that he already told the messengers early on, 2 chapters ago, he can give me a house full of silver and gold. I'm not going to be able to speak contrary to what God tells me to say. And now, behold, I go unto my people. Come, I will advertise you what this people shall do to your folk in the later days. And the note says, he gave also wicked counsel to cause the Israelites to sin, that thereby God might forsake them. And he uttered his parable and said, Balaam, the son of Beor, has said, and the man whose eyes were shut up has said, he has said that heard the words of God and has the knowledge of the Most High and saw the vision of the Almighty, and falling in a trance, had his eyes opened. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not here. There shall come a star of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise of Israel, and shall smite the coasts of Moab and destroy all the sons of Sheth. And the note says, meaning Christ. And the note says, that is the princes. He shall subdue all that resist. For of Shet came Noah, and of Noah all the world. And Edom shall be possessed, and Seir shall be a possession to your enemies, but Israel shall do valiantly. So he's telling Balaak, your kingdom is going to be completely destroyed and overrun by your enemies, and a star is going to come out of Jacob. He also that shall have dominion shall be of Jacob, and shall destroy the remnant of the city. So the children of Israel are going to occupy your country, he's saying. And when he looked, this is like so bizarre that someone like Tucker Carlson even challenges or questions this. It's so illiterate over and over and over again. And I'm not saying that a sacred text equals geopolitics, but you cannot pretend that over and over and over again in the Judeo-Christian sacred text, the children of Israel weren't told, and everyone around them wasn't told, Jacob is going to occupy this whole land. He's doing it right now. A non-Israelite is doing it to a non-Israelite king. Oh, these guys are going to take over this country. God said so. And when he looked on Amalek, he uttered his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his later end shall come to destruction. And the note says the Amalekites first made war against Israel, as in chapter 14:45. And he looked on the Kenites and uttered his parable and said, strong is your dwelling place, and put your nest in the rock. And the note says, make yourself as strong as you can. Nevertheless, no matter what you do, the Kenites shall be spoiled until Ashur carry you away captive. And Ashur, you remember, Ashur is one of the tribes of, that's Loki playing with his squeaky toy. Playing one of Loki, one of the 12 tribes of Israel, until Ashur carry you away captive. Again, he uttered his parable and said, alas, who shall live when God does this? The ships, the ships also shall come from the. Are you seeing Brian crawling around in the background? It's okay, honey. Nevertheless, the Kenite shall be spoiled until Ashur carry you away captive. Again, he uttered his parable and said, alas, who shall live when God does this? The ships also shall come from the coasts of Chittim and subdue Ashur, and shall subdue Eber, and he also shall come to destruction. I'm sorry, this is Ashur, the Assyrians, not Asher, the tribe of Israel. Then Balaam rose up and went and returned to his place, and Balaak also went his way. And the note says, some read, oh, who shall not perish when the enemy, that is Antichrist, shall set himself up as God. And then the note says the Grecians and Romans, that's how they interpret those people, meaning Eber, or the Jews, for rebelling against God, shall subdue Eber and the Jews for rebelling against God. And he also, the Hebrews, and he also shall come to destruction. So all of that happened, right? Literally all of that happened. And I'm going to read you again, although we'll read it again in the other two versions. It's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. The prediction of the Messiah, it's so beautiful. He had his eyes open. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not here, but not near. There shall come a star of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise of Israel, and shall smite the coasts of Moab and destroy all the sons of Shet. And Edom shall be possessed, and Seir shall be a possession to their enemies, but Israel shall do valiantly. It's just incredible, right? And understandably, Christians, since there were Christians, have read that as predicting the birth of the Messiah. Leah Call says, you are so right. That's so nice, but let's see what she's saying that about. Dear Naomi, I'm so sorry about all of this. I'm a Christian and my heart is for the Jewish people. Thank you. I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I don't see any conflict with loving you as a Jewish person, loving your country, praying for Jesus to reconcile all of us together. Me either. I would like that too. And we should be all reconciled together. And I'm sure that would make Jesus happy. And I think you are right. Let's see. Tucker has really lost his way, says Carol Bloom. I was shocked when he was one of the eulogists at Charlie Kirk's funeral. I wasn't shocked he was a eulogist, but his speech was shocking. I agree. His speech was in poor taste and scripturally ignorant. Thank you. The Jewish people are considered as the spiritual older siblings of Christians. The origin of Christianity is Judaism. Jesus was circumcised and he studied at the temple. All the early Christians were Jewish, starting with St. Paul. Totally, yes. But do you not feel like we're talking a bit of a crazy spiritually constructed echo chamber, because everyone used to know this. In my lifetime, everyone knew this. So something has changed, and I hope it's not a metaphysical blindness. But let's read the beautiful Hebrew that will make us happy. And I'm going to scoot in a little closer so I can see it. And this is Chabad.org, Numbers 24, and you can go ahead and read along. V'yach, and he saw Balaam ki tov be'enei Adonai. Balaam saw that it was good in the eyes of God. Levarech et Israel, to bless Israel. Tucker Carlson, I'm sorry, it's terrible. I shouldn't interrupt the word of God to take on a pundit. But it's right here, right? It's right here. V'yach Balaam, and Balaam saw that it was good in the eyes of God to bless Israel. Velo halach ke Fa'am bepa'am likrat nechashim, and he did not go as he had done time and again in search of magic or omens. Nechash is also snake, sounds like snake as well, but it's omens or the occult. V'yashet el hamidbar panav, and he turned his face toward the desert. V'yisa Bilam, and raised up Bilam et enav, his eyes, and you hear the echo of eyes, eyes, eyes. This is about people's eyes being opened or not being opened. V'yisa Bilam et enav, he lifted his eyes, v'yar, and he saw et Israel sochen lishvatav, saw Israel dwelling according to its tribes. V'tihi alav ruach Elohim, and there was on him literally the wind of God, and they translated the Spirit of God rested upon him. So this is not a Jewish guy, but he's baby Loki is trying to eat the giblets. Okay, I'm sorry, there's a lot going on here. There was on him the wind of God, the Spirit of God. So this is not a Jewish guy. Balaam is a man of God, even before he's, become a monotheist through, in this case, the Israelites, or, Christianity doesn't exist yet. But it's clear from this story that it doesn't matter if you're a holy person, God, finds you. And so the Spirit of God is resting on him. Vayisa Mishalo, and he took up and lifted, carried. It's that same verb, like the same one of Balaam lifting up his eyes. So he lifted up his example, mashal, you remember this word, it means example or parable. Vayomer Neum Bilam, and he said, the word of Bilam, Bno Beor, the son of Beor, Hagever, Shtum Ha'ain. The word of Balaam, the son of Beor, and the word of the man with an open eye. All right, I'm going to read that sentence again because it's full of internal rhymes, which are so trippy. V'yisa mashalo, vayomer, neum Bilam, bno Beor, uneum hagever, shtum ha'ain. Do you hear all those internal there are three of them. Rhymes. Shtum ha'ain. Neum, a third one. Shomea imre'el, the word of what someone who hears the sayings of God. Asher machazeh Shaddai yechazeh nofel uglui Einaim, the word of the one who hears God's sayings, who sees the vision of the Almighty, fallen yet with open eyes. And this is a famous sentence here. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. It is a song. I will sing it. This is how much I love you guys. I will sing it in my off-key song, because you should hear it. Ma tovu Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ma tovu. Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. And then it's a round, and you do it as a round. It's so beautiful. It's from this passage. How goodly are your tents, matovu, how good. Ohalecha Yaakov, your tents, O Jacob. Mishkenotecha Israel, your dwelling places. You remember that root shachen. It's like a neighbor, a settlement, your dwelling places, O Israel. And then you get into this poetry that is so extraordinary. Like, this poetry is so beautiful. It's almost like this was another poet, like Balaam was the poet, or God was the poet, communicating to Balaam, and then it was quoted in this text, because this section is more beautiful. The poetry is more beautiful than the prose of a lot that has preceded and followed it. So make of that what you will. Kin chalim, like rivers, like streams. Nitui ke ganot alei nahar, like gardens by the river. Ke ahalim nata Adonai, like aloes. And that's a play on the word ohel, which is tents, right? We heard about the tents a line earlier, ohalecha, right? So here's another play, ke ahalim, like aloes, nata Adonai, which the Lord planted, ke arazim ale maim, like cedars by the waters, literally. Yizal maim, there will flow water, mi dalav, from his wells. V'zar'o b'mayim rabim, and his seed is in abundant waters. Ve'yarom me'agag, v'yarom me'agag, and they will be greater. He will be greater than Agag. Malko, his king shall be raised over Agag, is how they translate it. Ve'tina se malchuto, and his kingship exalted. El, God, Motzio Mitzrayim, who brought them out of Egypt, Ketoafot Re'em, with the strength of his loftiness, Lo Yochal Goyim, Re'em Lo, with the strength of his loftiness, he shall consume, he will literally eat. And here's that word goyim, which is so often mistranslated as something nefarious. It just means nations. He'll consume the nations, tzarav, which are his adversaries, ve'atzmotehem yegarem, and he'll bear their bones, ve'chatzaiv yimchatz, and he'll dip his arrows into their blood. And I hope you hear that internal echo, that play on words, ve'chitzaiv yimchatz. It's like one of those clauses or phrases that almost mirrors, but not quite, right? Kara, shachav, he crouches and lies, ke'ari, like a lion. My dad's name was Leonard, which means in English lion heart, and it was translated Aryeh into Hebrew, or Ari, which means lion. So every time you see someone named Ari or Aryeh, it means lion, literally lion. Kara shachav ke'ari uch lavi me yakimenu, and like a lioness, who will dare rouse him? Meva rachecha baruch ve'orarecha aror ve'orarecha aror. I'm going to say that again. Mevarachecha, you remember that root, levarech is to bless, yevarecha baruch. So here's the active verb and the passive one. Those who bless you will be blessed. Ve'ararecha, and those who curse you, arur, are cursed. Ve'yachar af Balaak, and Balaak's anger flared, el Bilam, toward Bilam, ve'yispok et kapav, and he clapped his hands, literally his palms. Vayomer Balaak, and Balaak said, el Bilam, toward Bilam, lakov oivai karaticha, I called you to curse my enemies. Vihine barachta, barech, ze shalosh pa'amim, and here you have blessed a blessing, this 3 times. And again, there's that play or double use of the root boreach, which is bless, vehine, and here, berachta barech, you have blessed a blessing of them, these 3 times. Ve'ata, and now, brach lecha, oh God, the Hebrew, I can't believe it, what I'm seeing here. Ve'ata, and now brach lecha, that's spelled a little bit differently. It's a chet as the last letter, the ch sound, rather than a kaf, which is also a ch sound. But in this case, brach lecha sounds exactly like barechet, boreach, brach, all the blessing verbs, but it's brach is escape, flee. Now flee you. So you've got like blessing, 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 barach, 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 brach. And now brach, and now flee, it's the same sound. It's like a homonym, but a totally different meaning. Brach lecha, it's almost like that's the elevated version. If, Balaak would have blessed the children of Israel, and now he failed to, so his vibration has dropped. It's brach lecha, go flee. El mekomecha, to your place. Amarti kabed achabedcha. I said that I would honor you. Again, that duplication. Vihine me gacha Adonai mikavod. And here the Lord has deprived you of being honored. It could be mina'acha. Vayomer Balaam, and Balaam said, El Balak, to Balak, Halo gam el malachecha asher shalachta. And he said, Balaam said, hello, it's like, hey, isn't it evident? Hello, gam el malachecha, even toward your messengers. And you remember that word sounds exactly the same as angels, and it is the same word, essentially, used in different contexts. It's angels. Malachecha, asher shalachta, which you sent, Elai, toward me, dibarti lemor. I've spoken to say, saying, I said to them, basically, im yiten li, if he'll give to me Balaak, melo beito, his house full of kesef v'zahav, silver and gold, lo uchal la'avor et pi Adonai, I will not be able to literally cross over or pass the mouth of God. I will not be able to transgress the word of the Lord. They translate it, la'asot tova or ra'ah, to do good or evil, mili bi, from my heart, meaning on my own, asher yedaber Adonai, oto adaber, that which God speaks, that which I can speak. So he's saying, I already told them, I could only say what God tells me to say. And again, you've got that verisimilitude, right? That just like the ass, the donkey speaking exactly the way you'd expect a donkey to speak. Well, aren't I your donkey? Remember, we talked about that. He's going, didn't I tell you, right? You can literally hear them. And by the way, I interviewed a Jewish comedian today, and he quoted the first joke, which was in Exodus, and the first Jewish joke. And these cadences descend to us to this day. So what? I didn't tell you? I told you. He could give me gold and silver, all he wants. I can't do anything but what the Lord says, right? Like literally this cadence of language descends to us to this day. V'ata, and now, hineni holech le'ami, and now I go to my people, lecha e'atzcha, asher ya'aseh ha'am hazeh, I will advise you that which this people will do, le'amcha, to your people, be'acharit hayamim, at the end of days, meaning over a great deal of time. Ve'yisa, and he lifted up that verb again, to carry, mishalo, his example, his parable, ve'yomar, and he said, ne'um Balaam, the word of Balaam, bno Beor, the son of Beor, uneum hagever shtum ha'ayin. And so you've got the whole line 15, 100% echoes an identical line further up with lots of internal echoes, with an open eye. Ne'um shomea imrei el, the word of the one who hears God's sayings, yodea da'at, knows knowledge, perceives the thoughts elyon of the Most High, machazeh shaddai yechezeh, who sees the vision of the Almighty, yechezeh nofel uglui einaim, fallen yet with open eyes. So he's saying, I'm in a trance, right? I hear God's words and I perceive the thoughts of the Most High. I see the vision. I've fallen, but my eyes are open. He's in a trance. And now here we go, you guys. Er'enu, I see it. Velo ata, but not immediately. Ashurenu, I behold it. Velo karov, but it's not near, it's not soon. Darech kochav miyakov, darach, a star has gone forth. The word darach is also related to derech, which is a way, or lidroch, which is to step. Darach kochav miYaakov, a star has gone out from Jacob. V'kam shevet misrael, and a staff will arise from Israel. Umachatz pa'atei Moav, which will literally crush or press the princes of Moab. V'karkar kol bnei Shet, and will uproot all the sons of Seth. Ve'Adonai Edom Yeresha, and Edom will be possessed. V'haya Edom, and Edom will be possessed. V'haya Yeresha Seir, and Seir shall become the possession, Oivav Yisrael, of his enemies. Oivav veYisrael Ose Chayil, and Israel shall triumph. Chayil has the same root as Chayal, which is a soldier. Vayered miYaakov veHaevid Sarid Meir. A ruler shall come out of Jacob and destroy the remnant of the city. That's the end quote. Vayar et Amalek, and when he saw Amalek, V'yisa Mishalo, he took up his parable. Vayomar Reshit Goyim, and said Amalek was the first of the nations, Amalek. Ve'acharito ade oved, and his fate shall be everlasting destruction. End quote. Vayar, and he saw et hakeni, the Kenite. Vayisa Mishalo, and he took up his parable. Vayomar Eitan Mo Shavecha, how firm is your dwelling place, Vasim Basela Kinecha, and put your nest in a cliff. Ki im Yeh Levaer Kain, for if Kain is laid waste, Adma Ashur Tishbecha, how far will Assyria take you captive? Vayisa Mashalo, and he lifted up his example, Vayomar, and said, Oi, and it's translated as alas, but I'm asking you to note that to this day we say Oi, Oy vey, right? It goes through Yiddish, it descends to the present time. Oi, me ye me sumo el, who can survive these things from God? Vitzim, miyad, kitim, ships will come from the Kittites, ve'inu Ashur, and afflict Assyria, ve'unu Ever, and afflict those on the other side, ve'gam hu adei oved, but he too will perish forever. Vayakam Balaam, and Balaam got up, vayelech, and went, vayashav limkomo, and returned to his place, ve'gam Balaak halach ledarko, and also Balaak went on his way. And here I want you to notice the echo, the word derech, ledarko, to his way. It is an echo of a star will come out. A star has gone forth from Jacob, and a staff will arise from Israel. There was a darach. Here it is. Velokarov darach kochav miYaakov. So there's an echo, the going forth. Oh my gosh, this is one of the most incredible passages I've ever read. I can't believe we had the pleasure of reading it. Wow. And I do believe all of that happened. I mean, I'll have to map the Kenites and the Moabites, but for sure, Assyria came to this neck of the woods. And what are you eating? And conquered and took people hostage and slaves. And for sure, Assyria also has passed away and is no longer the great empire. And so this is so trippy because, we've talked about this before, times when timelines collapse. And this guy's a prophet, right? And he's prophesying. He's lifting up his example, his parable, and he's prophesying. And, these people around him are probably pretty upset because he was hired by one guy, the king of Balaak, the king of the Moabites, as I recall. And And yet he's saying, not only are they going to wipe you out, buddy, but over here, the Kenites, they're going to be wiped out. The Assyrians are going to be wiped out. Those guys over there, they're going to wipe them out. And those guys who are settled there, Jacob's going to settle there. The descendants of Jacob are going to settle there. So sorry, I tried to tell you, it's almost like he's angry. And I mean, he hasn't been treated well, right? He's been dragged out to see the king and then like literally harassed to give a curse that he doesn't want to give because he doesn't want to go against what God has told him to do, which is bless the children of Israel. So at great risk to himself, because this kind of king and this kind of kingdom could have just like executed him. He refused to do what the king wanted, and he blessed them and blessed them and blessed them and blessed them again. The verbs are constructed, bracha baruch, borech baruch, multiple blessings in one sentence and multiple curses in one sentence for those who curse them. So he was very brave, definitely, had God's spirit on him. And again, I want to just reiterate to anyone who feels like, who's been told that Judaism leaves you out. This is for everyone. Balaam is not a Jewish, Jews didn't exist yet. He's not a child of Israel. He's not part of that tribe. He's a pagan guy, but he's a man of God, and the wind of God rested on him. The spirit of God rested on him. So, that's really profound. It wasn't Moses sent to do this job or brought into contact with this king. It was this pagan speaking up for God, basically, and saying, don't do it. Don't curse these people. It's not going to end well for you. And you do have these timelines collapsed, because when this was composed, I don't think they could have known that Assyria would proliferate and then collapse. I'll need to look into it more deeply, but that does seem like one of those like completely prophetic prophecies, at the time that this was composed. However, it was composed, which I don't claim to know, but Assyria is in the future, as I recall the timelines. Can someone I'm just going to take a look. Yes, we're going a little bit over, but I think you are okay with that because there are hundreds of people watching, if not more. Let's take a look at Assyria dates. Let's see. Assyria came down like a wolf on the fold. Yeah, well, 2500 to 609 BC. Evolved into a vast empire through three main periods: Old Assyrian, 2025 to 1364, Middle Assyrian, 1363 to 912, and then Neo-Assyrian to 609 BC. And then the Persians came in, and that was just in the news because the Persians, took the Israelites captive. The Persians let the Israelites go home. But let's now look at the composition of Numbers date and see how prophetic it is, if it is Numbers. Bible dates. But as you know, many, many, many Christians have read this as really the first clear prophecy of the coming of a Messiah. And, people can argue, is it Jesus? Is it not Jesus? But certainly when people were making claims that Jesus was the Messiah predicted in the Old Testament, it was important that he be a descendant of Jacob because a star was going to come out of Jacob. So the book of Numbers covers only a 38 to 39 year period of the journey from Mount Sinai to the plains of Moab, spanning from 1445 to 1406 BC. That's specific. So arguably Assyria was a big power, but I don't know, and I'd be surprised if Assyria had taken over that part of the world. Basically, I'm venturing into questions to which I don't yet have the answers. I will get them and bring them back to you. But the rest of it we know happened, like Assyria collapsed. We could be taught, like, there are lineages in India that haven't collapsed for 3,500 years. So how would this soothsayer have known that Assyria would collapse at a time when Assyria was such a powerful empire, right? It's a prediction that came true. Let's see. Let's go ahead. If you'll stay with me, we'll just read our final text, which I find so illuminating because there's so much to learn from comparing these. And this is the Revised Standard Version. And we'll kind of zip through. When Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he did not go, as at other times, to look for omens, but set his face toward the wilderness. That's correct. And Balaam lifted up his eyes and saw Israel encamping tribe by tribe, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and he took up his discourse and said, the oracle of Balaam, the son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eye is opened. So they're interesting. They're in the Hebrew, it's more like word, not oracle, but there's one of those examples where they put a theological noun in the place of a very simple noun, right? Making it more religious-y. Granted, an oracle is something you get in Delphi. It's a pagan religion, Greek, but I wouldn't have translated oracle. And the Bamidbar does not translate it oracle. What is it? Took up his parable, and said the word. The Yomer Neum Balaam, the word is how they translate it. Okay, so let's go back to Numbers. The oracle of Balaam, the son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eye is opened, the oracle of him who hears the words of God, who sees the vision of the Almighty, falling down but having his eyes uncovered. Now, I am going to look at this more closely. Him who hears the words of God, who sees the vision of the Almighty. I think it's much more intimate in the original. Let's take a look. That's line 4. The words of one who hears God's sayings, who sees the vision of the Almighty, fallen yet with open eyes. Okay, it's pretty close. Fallen, but with open eyes. How fair are your tents, O Jacob, your encampments, O Israel. Nope. How good are your tents, matovu, not fair. It's literally good. Like in modern Hebrew, tov is good. Boker tov, good morning. That is a mistranslation to make it. They do this a lot with the children of Israel. They take away the moral value of Jews when there's a mistranslation. I'm sorry, but it's true. How fair are your tents, O Jacob? No, they're not saying it, matovu. O halecha, your tents, O Israel, not your encampments, like valleys that stretch afar, like gardens beside a river, like aloes that the Lord has planted. That's correct. Like cedar trees beside the waters. That's correct. Water shall flow from his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters. That's correct. His king will be higher than Agag. That's correct. And his kingdom shall be exalted. God brings him out of Egypt. He has, as it were, the horns of the wild ox. He shall eat up the nations, his adversaries, and shall break their bones in pieces and pierce them through with his arrows. He has, as it were, the horns of the wild ox. Did it say that in the Hebrew? Let's take a look. He shall consume the nations which are his adversaries with the strength of his loftiness. What? El motzihu mimitzrayim keto afot re'em lo yochal goyim tzarav. God, who has brought them out of Egypt with the strength of his loftiness, he shall consume the nations which are his adversaries, bear their bones, and dip his arrows into their blood. It doesn't say anything about horns and an ox, guys. He has, as it were, the horns of the wild ox. It does not say that. And this is so trippy and weird because stereotypes of Jews are that they have horns, which is not a positive stereotype. And that derives from a mistranslation of a word that's not in here, which is karnaim, which means rays like the sun, referred to something else. Moses coming down from Sinai had rays coming out of his head like the sun, or radiance, and it was translated as karnaim, as horns, because it can also mean horns, right? But in that context, it didn't. And that's why you have Michelangelo's Moses with horns. But Jews don't have horns. And it doesn't say he has, as it were, the horns of the wild ox. So why would the Revised Standard Version put it there? I'm going to have to write them a letter with all of these examples. There's nothing in there like that. He shall eat up the nations, his adversaries. That's correct. Break their bones in pieces. Yes. Pierce them through with arrows. Yes. He crouched. He lay down like a lion and like a lioness. Who will rouse him up? Blessed be everyone who blesses you, and cursed be everyone who curses you. All right. That's not right. Line 9. Let's go to the Hebrew. Those who bless you shall be blessed, and those who curse you shall be cursed. Who shall rouse him? Those who bless you shall be blessed. I mean, I guess it's a reasonable translation, but it's ambiguous who you is in the Revised Standard Version. Because they're talking about he crouched, and now they're saying, blessed be everyone who blesses you. Balaak's anger was kindled against Balaam, and he struck his hands together. And Balaak said, Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and behold, you have blessed them these 3 times. Therefore now flee to your place. I said, I will certainly honor you, but the Lord has held you back from honor. That's correct. And Balaam said to Balaak, did I not tell your messengers whom you sent to me? If Balaak should give me his house full of silver and gold, I would not be able to go beyond the word of the Lord to do either good or bad of my own will. That's fine. What the Lord speaks, that will I speak. And now behold, I'm going to my people. Come, I will let you know what this people will do to your people in the latter days. And he took up his discourse, much more his parable, and said, the oracle of Balaam, the son of Beor, again theologizing it, the oracle of the man whose eyes opened, the oracle of him who hears the words of God and knows the knowledge of the Most High. That's reasonably correct. Let's look at line 16. It's more intimate. Hears God's sayings and perceives the thoughts of the Most High, who sees the vision of the Almighty fallen and yet with open eyes. And Numbers is who sees the vision of the Almighty falling down but having his eyes uncovered. Honestly, it sounds weirder in this translation. Like it's not clear that he's in a trance, right? I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not nigh, not close by. Again, they're archaizing, making it archaic when it's not. A star shall come forth out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down all the sons of Shet. Edom shall be dispossessed. Seir also, his enemies shall be dispossessed, while Israel does valiantly. But by Jacob shall dominion be exercised, and the survivors of cities be destroyed. Then he looked down at Amalek and cursed Amalek, cursed the Kenite, and said, alas, who shall live when God does this? But ships shall come from Kittim and shall afflict Ashur and Eber, and he shall also come to destruction. Then Balaam rose and went back to his place, and Balaak also went his way. So that is it. We have read through this incredible chapter. Wow. I don't really know what to add to that. It's pretty intense. I guess I should just leave it there. What can I add to that? I mean, God's not messing around. Like it's so, the message of this text is history isn't random. We're not just at sea in a meaningless universe. There is a plan. The plan is going to unfold, whether it aligns with your personal will or not. And the very best way you can live is to align, with the direction that God is going, because that's the way it's going to go. And as powerful as you are now, king of the Moabites, that can be over in a flash. Very profound. And again, profound that this took so long, right? This is like the third or fourth chapter of this story of Balaam and Balaak. We've talked about the ways in which it feels like it really happened or something like it really happened. I think the change in the voice in the sections that are read as heralding the coming of the Messiah, or the coming of Jesus Christ, that sounds like an elevated voice. Maybe God really did dictate some poetry to this pagan soothsayer. He's certainly capable of it, and that's certainly the kind of thing he's done at various times. You don't know who he's going to choose for what task. He isn't making decisions on a human basis. Oh, that guy's not, a member of this tribe. Doesn't matter. He's a messenger from God. The incredible wordplay, I think, is just I'm not sure what to make of it, except that it's like looking at a work of art. Like sometimes when you look at Michelangelo's sculptures, it's just like, how did a human being do that? How did human tools and stone do that, right? And it kind of feels that way to me as a student of language when you look at there must have been 5 or 6 or 7 plays on words in this one short chapter that mirror each other. Borech, borech, barach, malach, malach. It's just a riot of meaning. That is almost impossible to believe that humans could have constructed so intricate and so ornate a structure of language that does so much, right? And also, a star did come out of Jacob. Like how extraordinary is that? Like that really happened. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you for joining me. We've gone 15 minutes over. Need your help. People have a lot of obligations, and it's hard to keep going with these readings and with the work we're doing on Substack with Outspoken and over on Daily Clout without your support. So please do become a subscriber to Outspoken, where these Geneva Bible readings are to be found on Substack. It's Dr. Naomi Wolf Reads the Geneva Bible. And you can also become a subscriber over on Daily Clout or a donor. And Barry Atkinson is here, and he is a good friend, many years, like Roscoe and Netta, and many others. Ms. Kelleher, like lots of friends are here. Always a joy to listen to you explicate the poetry of God's word. Thank you so much. Well, on that beautiful note, I will let you go. Have a wonderful rest of your night. As you see, I'm trying to do this, if not every day, as close to every day as I can get. And please help me. And is this channel pro-Israel? That's not my intention. My intention is just to explain what is in the Hebrew Bible. It turns out that that's pro-Israel, but that was not my intention. But it's also pro-everyone, right? It's pro-Palestinian, it's pro-Lebanese, it's pro-Syrian, it's pro-Christian, it's pro-Druze, it's pro-Hindu, because this is God saying we're all important. We all have a role to play in making the world reflect what God wants us to. So hopefully we do it in peace together. Love you guys. Thank you for joining me. This has been Numbers 24, and we'll go on to Numbers 25. I wonder what will happen next. Take care.